Hello students, I am Dr. Onindita Rai Choudhury and today I am going to discuss about the basic differences between vector and list. Now, what is vector? A vector is a basic data structure in R language. In R, a sequence of elements which share the same data type is known as vector. That means vector contains only homogeneous type of data. Now a vector is classified into two parts. One is atomic vector, another is list. Now, what are the differences between atomic vectors and list with respect to their definition, with respect to their creation of elements, with respect to their types of elements, with respect to accessing the elements we will discuss in the coming slides. Now, with respect to definition. In atomic vector or vector, all the elements are of same type. But in list, the elements are of different type. So we can say the list is a data structure that generalizes atomic vectors. And each and every element of the vector is known as its components. Now, how to create the elements? In case of atomic vectors, we can create the elements using C function, or in case of uh, atomic vector, the another way of creating element is using colon operator or using sequence function, that means ACQ function. So there are three different ways of creating atomic vectors. Now in case of list, we can create create a list using list function. Okay. So this is the example that we can create the elements of atomic vector using C function like this. Here we have taken the 7 days in a week and assigned the value in a list in a vector named day, and we are printing it. Now using colon, suppose we want to take the value from 1 to 10. So here we will give the range like 1 colon 10. It will take all the values 1 to 10. So this is the another way of creating atomic vectors. And the third option is ACQ function, where not only we can provide the start value or end value, also we can it is possible to provide the step, that means incremental step. Here if we give 0.5, then it will be incremented by 0.5, like 5, then 5.5, then 6, then 6.5, like so on up to 10. Okay, now creating the element of list. Since list supports heterogeneous data type, we can create different type of vectors within a list. So the first example is like that. We have created character vector, we have created integer type of vector, we have created double type of vector. Also it contains logical value like true false in a single list. So list supports heterogeneous type of data. And in second example, this is very interesting example, that a list contains a list itself. That means a list contains the inner list. Okay. So the first one is a character vector. A list contains three components. The first one is the character vector. Second one is a matrix. And third one is a inner list. So this list uh, which contains apple, green and 50 is an inner list. So a list contains a list itself, and this actually is the flexibility of a list. Now I will demonstrate how to create elements of vector, how to create elements of list, how to access it using RStudio. Okay. Now we will see how to create the element of a vector and a list using RStudio. So let's start the demonstration part. In RStudio, let's create the elements of vector using the three different options. So first option here is using C function. In C function, we can actually create the vector using this uh, syntax that vector name equals to, or the assignment operator which we use, then C function, then the values. Here the values are of all character types. So if you want to print it, then the function is print. If you want to check whether what is the actually data type, then class is the function name. So if you run that particular portion of the code, you will find that okay, it's taking the value as like the day Sunday, Monday to Saturday, and it's showing the character as the data type. Okay, now same vector you can create using the atomic vector can be created using the colon operator. You can provide the range of the values 1 to 10, and you can print it. And here also, if you want to check the type, class is the function name. So just run it. It will show that it is an integer type. Okay. In case of sequence function, one additional feature is there that you can provide the incremental step and as well as the start value and the end value. So if you run it, you see that here since the incremental value is, or the step is zero point 0.5, so if the starting value is 5, it will take 5.5, 6.0, then 6.5, like this. Okay. So this actually feature is additional in case of sequence function. Here also, if you want to check the data type, you can use here the class function. So this is the three different ways to create the vector elements. Now how to create the list element? You can create the list element using list function. Now see, since list supports heterogeneous data type, here we have created three different vectors which are of different data types. Like the first one is the character vector, second one is the number, the third one is the double, and the logical values are also there. So if you just in this example one, if you just run that portion of the code, you will find that three different vectors have been created. The first one contains the character values, blue, green, red. Second one contains 11, 22, 33. And the third one contains the double value. And the fourth one contains the four different components of vectors, components of lists are there, in which the first three one are vector of different data types and also contains logical values. Okay. The second example is very interesting because in second example, it shows that a list may contain another list. Here the first element of the list is a vector itself, character vector, which contains Sunday to Saturday. The second element is a matrix, which contains the value like 3 to 18, and which here the option is the number of row is 2, and the third component of the list is here another list inside a list, which contains values like apple green 50, that means of heterogeneous data type. So this second example is very interesting where we have shown that a list contains another list. Okay, so that's why list is very actually considered a data structure which is very flexible. Now the additional features which is there, that we can provide the name of each and every component of a list. If we want to provide the first component as the day list, which contains the day Sunday to Saturday, since the second element is a matrix, you can provide a name as a matrix, and since the third component is the inner list, you can give a name inner list. Okay, so this is possible to provide the name of a list, which will be very useful when you want to access the element. So you can see that three different actually created. The first component name is daily, second component name is a matrix, and the third component is a inner list. So here we can see the third component of the list is itself a list, that means the inner list, and that actually we have given a name, the inner list of that particular list. So all the three components of the list named list data, here we have given a name. For the first one, we have given the name as the day list, since we are actually showing the different days, Sunday to Saturday. The second component is matrix. We have given the name as a matrix, and the third one is a list, which is a since where it is an inner list, so we have given the name as inner list. So after running the program, you can see that all the three components of the list, we have actually named it. Now, what is the facility of naming the list? In time of accessing the list elements, we can either access it by their index, like what we did in vector, or we can access it by using the naming concept. So let's see how actually we can access the list elements. So this uh, print list data actually gives us this output. Now once we run this particular program for code portion of the code, it will show that mm, uh, it will show that here the first element is the element which is actually the name of the day. So it's showing that. Okay, and if you want to access the third element, which is also a list, itself a list, and contains the heterogeneous data, like this apple green, these are of type character, 50 numeric. So it also contains the heterogeneous data and itself a list. So if we want to print that list components or list elements, so here only you have to give the index position of that component, like what we did in vector. So okay, so after running it, we are getting the elements of this list. Now what is the facility of naming the each and every component of list? Here we have given the name of the matrix as a matrix. Okay, so if a matrix is there, then we can access the elements not only by using its index position, but also by using the name. So if we know the name, we can directly use the name with a dollar. So list data is the name of the list. Here list data, you can see this is the name of the list, and a matrix is the name of the matrix. So if you want to access the matrix elements, then you can easily write the name of the list first, then dollar, then the matrix name. So just run it. See here, the matrix is matrix elements are printed. So this thing is possible also using the index position. Okay, so if we want to access it by index position, what we have to write? We have to write print, then the name of the list, that means list data. Okay, then the index position of the list. Now, if we run this particular code, then you find that it shows the same output. Okay, so we can access the list either by using their index or by using their name. Okay, so this naming and indexing, these actually two are possible in list. So I think now it is clear that what are the differences between vector and list. Basically, vector is a data structure which contains similar type of data, but list is a data structure which generalizes vector